because they're jackasses. The question is, why do liberals protest the way they protest? Why do they do the things that they do? That's the answer. And I'm going to defend the point of view here. This stunt that occurred yesterday in Milwaukee is typical of it. The stunt that occurred a few days ago when they protested in Governor Walker's neighborhood, starting their recall drive, the way they act at the Capitol, the Facebook posting threatening Governor Walker's life, which, by the way, the woman is now not going to be charged, as I assured you she would not be. Ismail Ozan, the Democratic District Attorney in Dane County. I swear if somebody actually killed Walker, he might not charge him. Anyway, why do they do these things? It's because they're jackasses. Almost none of the tactics of the left, when it comes to the way that they protest or the way that they speak out or act up, are ever done ever by conservatives. I mean, almost never. The most in-your-face thing that I can think of that conservatives do is the picketing at abortion clinics. And for heaven's sakes, that's at a business and it's outside the business. That's the closest thing that I can come up with to the kinds of things that these people do. Yesterday, they go over to the North Avenue Bridge and they stand in the street for a couple of hours so the cars can't go through and the people can't get off the freeway at North Avenue. There's no point to that. This isn't like a sit-in on a segregated bus. This isn't Rosa Parks refusing to go to the back of the bus because she had a right to be in the front. Those are things in which the protest is connected to an actual issue. The only reason they did this is because they wanted to screw up people's lives. They wanted to be an annoyance. They wanted to be, as I said, jackasses. They make no point here. They build no support for any cause. Whatever the motivations of this supposed Occupy movement are, and when you listen to them, they prattle about the rich and Wall Street and jobs. Nobody has any idea what their position is because they're incoherent. But standing and blocking a street in River West over the freeway, there's no connection to that and their supposed cause. So why did they do it? They did it because they could. Remember when you were a kid, you'd sometimes go and ring the doorbells of the neighbors and run away? Well, so they still do it. Why do kids do that? They do it because they can get away with it. You ring the doorbell and run, you're almost never going to be caught. They don't ring the doorbell and then stand there and say, hey, I rang your doorbell because I'm a goof. They do it and they run because they know they're going to get away with it. It's their way of doing something that annoys somebody and to get away with it. The sole motivation is to be a jerk. But those kids are 10 years old, and you understand that when you're 10 years old, you might act out a little bit and be a jerk. These people standing on North Avenue are like 35. It's what drives what they do. At their core, they are jackasses. Of all the places to start the drive to recall Governor Walker, why go into his neighborhood and do that? There's only one reason to do it. It's because they're jackasses. There's no other reason to do it. Ask them why they do it, and they'll prattle on about their issues, but ask them why they did that. Ask them why they closed off a bridge for a couple of hours yesterday. They don't have a reason, because we want to show the world that we need jobs. No, I wasn't asking you what issue you're in favor of. I was asking you why you were standing and closing off a street. They don't have an answer. They like doing it because they know they can get away with it. In the same way that a lefty activist knows that they can go on the internet and threaten the governor's life, and they know that in this lefty state, nobody's going to do anything about that. Only a jerk does that as well. Only a jerk goes and posts on the internet threatening the life of the governor. And they do it because they're empowered to get away with it. There are two reasons why people on my side, the conservative side, never engage in this kind of stuff. A, we wouldn't be allowed to get away with it, and B, we're not jackasses. All you have to do is take a look at the way conservatives in the United States, but let's be more specific here, in Wisconsin, stand up and try to express their point of view. Look at the Tea Party rallies that occurred all over the state in 2009 and 10. They were always on property where the property owner had already given permission. They never, or public areas where it was allowed to do it. They never went somewhere that they weren't authorized to be. When they held their events, they were always well organized and they always respected the adjacent private property. They didn't go stand on property of people who weren't connected. They tried not to disrupt the area. When these big events were held, they even set aside parking areas to try to move people in just so that there wouldn't be any disruption. And when the events were over, I'm telling you, those properties were cleaner than when the Tea Party people showed up. They pick up absolutely everything after them. They pick up stuff that was there before they got there. Why? Because they have respect. They were there to demonstrate or to express political opinions, but they wanted to do so in a way that respected the rights of others in society. Liberals don't have that respect. Not respecting the rights of others is one of the things that defines a jackass. One of the better local columnists around here. I won't say one of the best local columnists around here because that would be me. I can't help myself. You too are a jackass. Okay. I'm kind of pompous. Joke about this stuff. You didn't see me blocking any traffic yesterday, did you? Of course I would have been arrested. You want to test this? Go stand in the middle of a street in Milwaukee right now. If you're not a liberal protester, you're going to be arrested. One of the better local columnists around here, which is why it's not surprising he's not in the Sentinel Journal. I misstated. One of the better conservative columnists around here, and in fact, what I meant to say is one of the better columnists around here. And it's not surprising he's not in the Sentinel Journal because if you're a conservative and you can write, there's no way they'll ever put you in that paper. They just refuse to do it. And I think the reason that they refuse to do it is they don't want to have a popular conservative columnist. They just don't want it because they know it would probably be popular. Anyway, the guy's name is Wigderson, James Wigderson. He is a blogger, and he also writes for the Waukesha Freeman, as do I. Wigderson's certainly not right on all issues. In fact, he's wrong on a few of them. But he's a very, very good writer. And he expresses himself very, very well. He weighed in on this whole thing by focusing on what happened at Governor Walker's home. Wigderson, I think, as do I, understands this. I'm going to share with you what he writes. Wigderson's column, which appeared in the Freeman, in fact, yesterday. What was the point of the protest outside Governor Scott Walker's home Tuesday night? Let's think about what the protest organizers were doing. Tensions are already high. The governor is facing death threats, including those posted on Facebook that were recently publicized. With that in mind, what were the protest organizers thinking when they led an angry mob to the neighborhood where the governor's family lives? What were they hoping would be the outcome? Were they hoping that some act of violence happened? Or did they just want to try to intimidate the Walker family some more? Was the march about scaring women and children in an effort to get what the protesters want? Because the tactic had all the subtlety of a Ku Klux Klan rally, with vuvuzelas and drums instead of burning crosses. What were the neighbors thinking that helped this mob come near the Walker home by inviting the protesters in? I can't imagine doing that to any of my neighbors, whether I like them or not. If someone said we want to organize a mass protest to intimidate one of my neighbors, I wouldn't care what the issue was, even if the neighbor was a perfect stranger. Even the mafia in The Godfather 2 knew a line was crossed when someone tried to kill Michael Corleone. Quote, "In my home, in my bedroom where my wife sleeps and my children play with their toys." But the protesters and the recall organizers feel morally superior enough over the rest of us that their mob-like behavior is somehow justified. I can't even imagine the self-satisfied smugness that would cause someone to think that intimidating the family of a public figure in their own home is somehow okay. Great sentence. Let it sink in. Let me read it, in fact, again. I can't even imagine the self-satisfied smugness. Good job, Wigderson. You hit it right on the button there. I can't even imagine the self-satisfied smugness that would cause someone to think that intimidating the family of a public figure in their own home is somehow okay. I did experience, he writes, some of that self-righteousness myself the other day. I promoted a number of charity events on my website, and a local liberal blogger, Lisa Mux, posted a link on Twitter with an apology. Yes, I'm tweeting something James Wigderson posted. No, I haven't gone crazy. Apparently, I'm in the untouchable caste, according to the liberal Brahmins. She followed with, yes, and I don't agree with James Wigderson on much, but he does care about Waukesha. Apparently hard-hearted conservative that I am, it's surprising that I care about anything. Waukesha must be the exception. Mux then sent another Twitter remark congratulating herself on how she's so tolerant. Really? I don't mention this just to pick on Mux. I just find her remarks all typical of the self-righteousness that drives people to march to Walker's home to demonstrate. Liberals are good and conservatives are evil. We can talk about different causes for the recall. The vain hope by the unions that collective bargaining privileges will be restored. The Democratic Party's hope that if they get back the state Senate and some friendly judge tosses out redistricting, that they will get a better map out of the deal. But what's really driving the recall is a sense of entitlement by the liberals. I'm not talking about the class warfare sense of entitlement. I mean the sense that because they care and their hearts are somehow pure, they are entitled to make the rest of us accept their version of government. If the voters let them down, if Fox News and the Koch brothers somehow manipulate the voters into voting for the wrong kind of people, the liberals don't have to accept the results. They can throw the election results out. Liberals are just that much better than the evil Republicans. That justifies the recall of Walker, even though he has done nothing in office to merit being recalled. That justifies the recall of Republican state senators, even though none of them have done anything to merit being recalled. It's what justified the march near the governor's home, near his wife and kids, in the neighborhood where his kids play and go to school. The protesters do it because they can, and they feel so good about themselves that any behavior is justified. Now, that was James Wigderson. I've talked on my show quite a bit about the sense of moral superiority that liberals have. Rush talks about this as well. You'll hear Rush say, "We can do this because we're good people." I know, liberals, you hear this all the time. Well, it's because we care so much. Oh, as opposed to we conservatives, we don't care. You care. You're better. You want jobs. You care about the little guy. You're not racist. You're accepting. You're tolerant because you are all of those wonderful things. You get to be jerks to everybody else because you're so wonderful. It's all somehow in the furtherance of the goodness that you personify. No. You're not only not better than anyone else, you're actually worse. For all of your patting yourselves on the back about your moral superiority, you're in fact morally inferior. Because the people that you look down upon are the people who show you more respect than you will ever show them. The people that you look down upon are the people who are out there actually trying to change the world and make it a better place. They are the people who are creating the jobs and paying the taxes and providing all of the benefits that you suck off of without contributing anything on your own. They accept the fact that we live in a country in which democracy is allowed to work and the people who win elections are allowed to govern. They stand up and defend your legal free speech rights even when you engage in obnoxiousness. They never try to silence you. They never try to bully you. They even have allowed the existence of systems that allow you to make incredible amounts of money without doing a damn thing with your lives. They try to be fair in the way they deal with other people. In other words, they engage in behavior that is moral. Unlike yours, you're not morally superior. All of your supposed caring has one thing in common. You care about all of the things that benefit you personally. That doesn't make you a good person. It makes you self-centered. You claim to support helping out the little guy, but you don't really. Is it a coincidence that everything you ever advocate for always seems to have a direct impact on giving you something? The expansion of the government benefits, the ability to have collective bargaining privileges that allow you to fleece your fellow man, all these things always come back to you. And in the end, your need for power and dominion over everyone else. All this is a giant hissy fit. What makes your activism especially weird around the country right now is that you have most of the power. We elected one of your own, your savior, President of the United States. He's presided over the collapse of our economy. Your unwillingness to accept the fact that he has failed because he, like you, is a good person who cares, is allowing you to create scapegoats and decide that everybody else in society is somehow a demon. Block one of you in traffic? You'd go ballistic. Your sense of entitlement. See what happens when you cut off a lefty riding a bike, by the way. The same lefties who blow through every stop sign because they're entitled, because they're saving the planet. When conservatives speak out and stand up for their rights and try to fight for the things that they approve of, they're engaging in hate. But when you do it, let the saints go marching in. Everybody move away. Here are the noble liberals standing in the street and blocking traffic, shoving cops around, screaming like banshees at the governor's house. Jackass is as jackass does. You're a bunch of jackasses. That's how you behave. That's therefore what you are. You don't want to be called jackasses? You union types don't want to be called goons? Stop behaving like jackasses and goons. You're incapable of that, though. Because that's what you are. And you know that you can get away with it. And you know that we can't. We know that our playing by the rules has created a system that means we always have to pay by the rules or we have faced consequences. You don't play by any of those rules because you know there are never any consequences for you. And you don't think there should be consequences for you because you think you are holier than thou being us. You're so special. The fact of the matter is that while you claim that you're so put upon and you're so oppressed and it's so terrible, all the things that are happening to you, as you try to go from the moment that you popped out of the womb to the moment that you go into the grave, to be carried by the rest of us with one entitlement program after another, after you actually get up and claim that the $75,000 in student loans that you spent shouldn't have to be paid back, after you whine and bawl and complain that somehow it's the responsibility of somebody else to give you a job even though you have no discernible employment skills at all, and would immediately have a bad attitude the moment you walked into the joint, and would probably try to start screwing the employer by forming a union 3 minutes after you were hired. You, with all of that, want us to be nicer to you even as you try to suck the life out of us as long as you're around. We pay and we pay and we pay and we pay and we're taxed and we're taxed and we're taxed and we're taxed. Yet there you are still demanding more from us. And when you don't get your way, you block the street for a couple of hours and laugh at the cops who you know aren't going to do anything to you. What was the arrest count? I believe 5 or 6. I think Police Chief Flynn blew his whistle 5 or 6 times to get somebody arrested, and one of them was a drunk who actually drove into the crowd. You're the same ones that bitch to Summerfest about the fact that the Army is allowed to have a little demonstration on the grounds. You're the ones that trash the recruiting stations and mock the people who are willing to sacrifice some of their lives to serve their country and put their bodies on the line in fighting some enemy in the middle of some desert on the other side of the world. You look down on them, and you think you're better than them. Figuring you out is simple. Your smugness. Your condescension. The way you roll your eyes when someone says they believe in God. The way you mock the intelligence of someone who would dare question man-made global warming. The way you accuse those who have sincerely differing views from your own of being evil, hateful people. The way you try to silence the voices of anyone who disagrees with you. See, in the end, you have to try to persuade yourself that you're better than the rest of us. Because it's the only way you can justify to yourselves the fact that you spend most of your waking moments being a total jerk. And the thing about it is, every one of them knows who they are. Pretty much if you're offended by what I'm having to say right here, that kind of means I'm talking about you. Now, some of you, well, you know, there are some liberals who don't behave like this. Yeah, they're kind of in the minority, though. They're kind of like the sympathizers for the terrorists. They're the ones who, well, okay, I guess I wouldn't go into Walker's neighborhood myself to be a jerk, but I'm glad the others are. Now, many people believe that in the end, everybody gets what they deserve. I think that that's probably up to God. I haven't seen any real sign that that's what happens on planet Earth. Bill Clinton is kind of proof of that. And I don't know if there's any great reward for those of us who try to follow the rules in life, those of us who pay all of our bills and pay our taxes and try to get ahead financially. And we do better than the other guy, actually try to get a raise and buy stuff the other guy doesn't have. I don't know if there's any real reward that we get for that, but do know this. In our hearts, we know that you are the jerks, and you are the jackasses, and you are the clowns, and you are the buffoons. And I also know full well why you chose to hold your little event yesterday on a city street, on a bridge, rather than in a park where you wouldn't be bothering anyone else, because your whole point was you wanted to bother people. If you would have held your stupid little march or stupid little rally in some park where you're out of everybody's way, that really wouldn't have been the point, would it have? All you are the 9-year-olds ringing the doorbell. Because you can, and because that's who you are.